Getting there. What's going on, guys? Urban Bastards here. Gonna do a little video today on my personal best fish that I caught. It's kind of a heartbreaking story. I was gonna go out fishing today, but I had a couple friends hit me up, wanted me to go with them. I got my kids here. They're inside watching movies and they're on the computer and all that stuff, so they're completely preoccupied. You know how teenagers can get. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little story on my PB fish. So there's this pond out in Folsom, and it's back in the neighborhood. And back when I was a kid, I helped my dad. We framed a lot of the houses back in that neighborhood before the roads were even put in and stuff. So back in the day, on this property, it was just this one house with the pond. And my dad took me back there years ago on this little dirt road and showed me the pond. And that's kind of how I knew it was there. So fast forward years later, I'm going out and find a couple pond spots in Folsom to fish. And I'm fishing the Folsom High School pond. If anybody knows what that's at, everybody knows what Folsom High School pond's at. So fishing that spot, and I meet a guy, and he tells me about this pond that's across the street. And I instantly remember exactly what pond he's talking about because I saw it as a kid. So go over there and check it out. I shore fished it a few times, and we caught some small fish. I'd wade out up to my knees, throwing Senkos. I really didn't know how to fish back then, and I caught some 1-2 pounders out there. And I meet this guy, and he's throwing this like 8-inch rat lure, this gigantic rat lure, right? And he casts this thing out into the middle of the pond, and it just lets it sit there. And me and him get to talking, and he's telling me about how he's caught an 8-pounder out of that pond, some 6-pounders, 4-pounders, 3-pounders. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, he's probably lying to me. Back then, I didn't really, I don't know. So yeah, we kind of get done talking. I say, all right, have a nice day or whatever. I start to walk away, and he starts to reel in that rat lure, right? All I hear is this gigantic, boom, just splash in the water, and he goes, oh, I got one. So I go running back over to where he's at. I had only got like 20 feet away from where he was at. He's got a 6-pound bass on him. I mean, this thing was nice. So instantly I knew that there was big fish in this pond. So I decided to start floating it because I knew if I could get out to the middle of the pond where nobody was casting, that I could get onto some fish that nobody else were casting at. Because the big fish, they don't really like to get around the sides, and they stay out in the middle. And this pond has a bunch of old trees in it, so there's these tree stumps out there. And I used to get snapped off out there so much on these big fish, and so I finally learned to upgrade my line. I learned how to tie better knots. I started using braided line. I got a better pole. I got better reels, because these fish were snapping me off left and right out there. I mean, like, you'd hook into one and it'd try to pull the rod out of your hand. That's how awesome this pond used to be. So I caught a 6-8 out of there one time, and I'll put the video up. I don't think I'm going to be able to get good footage of this guy.
Alright, you guys take it easy. Yeah, man.
You got a light on your phone?
Yeah.
By chance?
I got a flashlight. Jeez, that's like 25 inches too. Good job.
Thanks, guys. Holy shit, Urban Bass Layers out here, and just caught this monster 6-8 smile fishy. Rock it out, let him go bye-bye. So anyway, that was the fish there, the 6/8 I caught. I caught that thing at night. It was a weird day. I'd been out there fishing all day with another guy, and we were talking, and I missed a nice sized fish. So I was sitting there and I was bummed out, sitting there for maybe a half an hour without making a cast, and the sun's going down, and I got taken out of my game by not paying attention. I could have been casting, I wasn't doing it, but it kind of paid off for me because I had to gather myself before I could cast again. So everybody is getting out of the pond in their float devices, and I was on my little raft. And there was a couple shore fishermen out there, and I had moved out of a spot so they could shore fish. And the spot that I moved over to, I decided I'd throw out one more time with the Cinco, and there's a rock pile under the water. These big round rocks out there in Folsom, if you know what it's like. So there's these rock piles, and I dragging a Cinco, just taking it over the rocks, and I just feel a boonk, set the hook, and tried to pull this time it tried to pull the rod out of my hand, but this time it wasn't up in the trees. It was out in the open water. So this fish was mine, and I had a net on me. It swam straight towards me and went right into the net. But it was already dark out, so I got lucky. And these guys are walking down the side getting ready to leave, and they hear me fighting this fish. So they all come running over. Of course, I didn't have a light. I didn't have a GoPro back then. I had to get some really bad footage of that fish. So moving on, not that long after that, in December, I went out there and we were shore fishing, and I decided to walk out up to my waist in this freezing cold water. I mean freezing cold water. But I knew that these big fish were going to be up on the sides because it had rained for almost a week straight, and this pond had went from being almost dried up to being like overflowed with water. So I knew those big bass were going to be up in the reeds, way as close up to the shore as they could get. So I find a crate, like a big wooden crate, a pallet, and somebody had thrown it out on the shore. I don't know why it was there, but I look at it, and for some reason it just something told me to use it. So I grabbed it, I walked it out, and I put it up on top of the reeds and like smashed them down to where I could get up on top of the pallet and use it like a little dock to fish. So of course I'm using a mighty bug, a young mighty bug, on a Gamakatsu 3/0 hook, which is like, I use that almost for everything. Cast it out there, and I run the top water 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 times, and then I remind myself it's cold water. They're going to be pushed up, but they're not going to be top water feeding yet because it's still cold. It's December. So I cast out there again. I let the bait sink down. I bump it twice. Bump it a third time. The fish bites. I set the hook on it, and it tries to take off. And there's one little group of reeds in like this little cove area. In that group of reeds, the fish turned around, and it smacked right into the reeds and like stunned itself. Turned around, tried to jump out of the water with its mouth open, and I just scooped the fish up out of the water. And I was freaking out. My buddy Rich was down the side, and of course I didn't have a GoPro back then. I didn't even get video footage of it. I was so like, I was screaming, I was yelling at him to come down the side. Like I was like, I finally got one, I finally got it. Like, I don't know it. Yeah, so the fish was weighing 7.2, 7, so I say the fish was 7. I'm not going to go for the 2, so I'll just say the 7. So the 7-pound fish, the pictures. Yeah, that was my personal best. Unfortunately, as you'll see in some other pictures here I'll show you, the pond dried up. The City of Folsom did nothing to help fix the situation. We tried to address the city council. They didn't care. They let the pond dry up. All the fish died. I mean, all of the fish died. It was a free for all for the big birds. There was pelicans out there. Pelicans bigger than I've seen out in the Delta, and they were just eating everything. I mean, these pelicans were like gigantic, and you could just see them eating the fish left and right. Me and my buddy, we walked out because it was completely dried up, and you could walk out to like the middle of where the pond was, and there was just dead bass everywhere, 6-7 pound bass. Dead, gigantic bluegill, sunfish. I mean, big ones. We used to go out there and worm and bobber fish, and I caught my biggest sunfish ever out there. It was almost a pound. So yeah, this place is it's pretty devastating because I know a lot of people fish that spot, and I've met a lot of people fishing out there and made some pretty cool friends with some one of the youngster kids that used to fish out there. It was on the Folsom football high school team, and they won the state championships. He's a pretty cool little kid, and yeah, I'm pretty sure he's bummed out too. So I don't know. Rumor has it that some fish have ended up back into that pond somehow. That's how the big fish got in there in the first place. Was people from the neighborhood were avid bass fishermen, I guess, and they would go out in their bass boats to Comanche and the Delta and other places, and they were putting the big bass into that pond. And if you didn't know it was there, you didn't know it was there. And yeah, just that place. I want to get it. I want to get it back. I want it back to what it was, because it was awesome, man. I mean, there was 8 pound fish in there. I'm sure, because there was total rumors of a 10, and I know another guy was saying he caught a 12 out of there. I didn't see the bodies of the dead 10s and 12s, but I definitely seen the body of the one that I think was my personal best. And that, yeah, I cried. I literally cried. So I wanted that fish to get bigger so I could catch it again. Beat my personal best. That pond was so fun. Had the best structure of any pond that I've ever fished. There were rock piles, deep spots, there were shallow spots. It had reeds, it had grass, it had the type of weeds on the side you could topwater fish. It had stuff you could punch, and then you had laydowns of wood that were sideways laydowns, and then you had vertical trees that were out there. Like, it had everything, man. It was a badass pond. I learned how to fish out of that pond. So anyways, guys, that's the story of my PB. Got a little story of Rich's PB, his 9.5 pounder that he got out of Greenback Elkhorn Pond with a rattle trap in summertime, running that thing 1,000 miles an hour. I'm trying to convince him to get me the footage so I can put it on the page. I told him he'd blow up if I can get that 9 pounder footage from him. It's not the best footage because it was filmed on a phone, but he's got footage of getting it to the shore and holding it and releasing it and stuff. And our buddy Gary had caught a 6 on a Senko, just dead sticking it, like not even 5 minutes before Rich caught that fish. So, yep. Anyways, guys, Urban Bass Slayers, gonna enjoy my day of just chilling in the backyard. Got me a nice adult beverage, and just gonna hang out. And my buddy Porky come by, Justin, and he bought some of my fishing stuff today. I was pretty stoked on that, and to find out he just lives right over the freeway from me, I'm pretty stoked on that. So he bought a bunch of my Senkos and crawdads and stuff, and one of my hand-painted jerkbaits. So pretty cool stuff, man. I need to get back in my room. I think I'm gonna go in there and clean out my bait making room right now, and get this stuff ready to go. I just bought all kinds of new paints and stuff for my airbrush, and anyway, I'm mumbling. Urban Bass Slayers 2018. Thank you guys for watching my channel. Really appreciate it. Makes me feel like I'm actually doing something productive with myself. So yeah, You guys that are making your own channels out there and follow me, you guys are doing good. Keep doing it. Keep it up. So, you know, this little fishing community of all of us small YouTubers in Sacramento, that's pretty cool. We all got to support each other. And, hey, together we all make each other better fishermen, so. Have a good day, guys. Or best layers.